on wanting and wanting and hoping and wanting and never quite.
And hoping and wanting and wanting and never quite. And hoping
and hoping and hoping and wanting and never ever quite. And wanting and wanting and never ever quite. And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping so much and longing so much and never quite. And wanting and craving and longing and needing and desperately hoping.
Though I never ever ever. And wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately wanting and desperately needing.
If only.
It must be possible, but never not once.
And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping beyond hope, beyond all reasonable hope, beyond all reason, hoping, desiring and craving and needing
and longing and never not wanting, never not needing, sometimes not hoping and wanting and wanting and hoping and wanting and longing and never quite getting there. And hoping and wanting and never quite. And hoping and wanting and never ever quite. And wanting and never ever quite.
And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping so much and never quite.
And wanting and craving and needing and desperately hoping, so desperately hoping,
so desperately hoping.
And never ever. And wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately wanting and desperately needing. If only it were possible, and it doesn't seem to be. Not ever and never ever quite.
And wanting 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 and hoping beyond hope.
Beyond all reasonable hope.
Beyond all reason, beyond all sanity.
Hoping, desiring, craving and needing and longing and wishing and never not wanting, never not needing.
Sometimes not hoping, yes, sometimes not hoping. Often not hoping, sometimes despairing, too often despairing, and never ever getting there.
No, never ever, not really there, not where I want to be, not once. And wanting and wanting and hoping and wanting and never quite.
And hoping and wanting and wanting and never quite.
And hoping and wanting and never ever quite. And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and longing and hoping so much.
And never quite. And wanting and craving and needing and desperately hoping. And never ever. And wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately wanting. And desperately needing. If only. One day, but never quite. It must be possible.
Why not?
Why can't it be possible?
Why can't
it happen? Why can't it be as I want it, when I want it?
So much.
But never not once, never ever, not since I was born, it doesn't seem. And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping beyond hope, beyond all reasonable hope, beyond all reason, still hoping, desiring and craving.
And needing and longing and never not wanting.
Never
not needing. Sometimes not hoping, often not hoping and wanting and wanting and hoping and wanting and never quite. And hoping and wanting and never quite. And hoping and wanting and never ever quite.
Wanting and wanting.
And never ever quite.
And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping beyond so much. Just so desperately much,
so
painfully much,
so
cruelly much, so stupidly much,
so insanely much,
so endlessly much,
so tiresomely much, so much more than I want,
and never quite, and wanting and craving and longing and
desperately hoping and never ever getting there, and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately needing, if only,
and never quite,
if only,
it must be possible, only it isn't. It doesn't appear to be. It shouldn't be possible.
Only it isn't.
It doesn't appear to be, never not once.
Wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping beyond hope, beyond all reasonable hope, beyond all reason. Still hoping, desiring, craving and longing and needing and never not wanting, never not needing, sometimes not hoping and never ever getting there.
And wanting and wanting and hoping and wanting and never quite. And hoping and wanting and never quite. Hoping and wanting and never ever quite. Wanting and never ever quite. And wanting and wanting and hoping so much and never quite getting what I want. And wanting and craving and needing and desperately hoping and never ever. And wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately wanting and desperately needing. If only and never quite. If only. It must be possible, only it doesn't appear to be. Never not once.
And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping. Beyond hope. Beyond all reason, beyond all reason. Still hoping, desiring, craving, needing. Never not wanting, never not needing. Sometimes not hoping, too often not hoping. I keep on wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping and wanting and never quite. And hoping and wanting and never quite. And hoping and wanting and never ever quite. And wanting and never ever quite.
and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping so much.
So desperately much.
So horribly much.
So
So
painfully
painfully
much.
much.
So stupidly much.
So insanely much.
And never quite. And wanting and craving and needing and desperately hoping. And never, ever, ever getting what I want.
Always
something else.
something
Something I
I
don't
don't
want.
want.
Not really.
Not really what I want.
Only second best.
If that.
And wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately wanting and
Desperately needing. If only.
And never quite.
If
only
only.
it must be
Must be
possible.
possible.
Only it doesn't appear to be.
Please make it possible.
Please, please, please.
Make it, please. But never not once.
And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping beyond hope.
Beyond all reasonable hope,
Beyond all
beyond
reason,
reason,
still
still hoping, desiring and craving and longing and desiring, never not wanting, never not needing, sometimes not hoping, often not needing, often despairing, too often despairing, and never ever ever getting there, never ever getting what I want. I expect too much, I expect too much,
I want
too much, I need too much.
I have to have too much. I crave too much. I lust for too much.
I always want more.
More and more and more.
And always more and more, give me more, give me more.
Give me more. I need to have more.
I've got to have it.
I know I shouldn't. I've got to accept what there is, what there is, what there is. But things are as they are.
Can't always have more. Things are as they are. Can't always get what you want. Things are as they are. Can't always have more.
Crying after the moon. I always want more and more and more. I need too much.
I lust for
Lust
too
for
much.
too much. I demand too much. I long for too much. I crave for too much. I need too much. Won't take what I'm given. Won't accept how it is. Things are as they are. Can't always have more and more and more. No ends to the wants and needs and the longing and the demands for more and more and more. Give me more. Give me more. Give me more.
Give me more.
I've got to have more. I need
So
it.
I keep on
I
wanting
keep on
and
wanting
wanting
and wanting and hoping and wanting and never quite. And hoping and wanting and wanting and wanting and never quite. And hoping and hoping and wanting and never quite. And wanting and never ever quite.
And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping so much and longing so much and never quite. And wanting and craving and longing and needing and desperately hoping I never ever ever.
And wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately wanting and desperately needing.
If only. It must be possible, but
never
not once.
And
wanting, hoping so much, hoping beyond hope, beyond all reasonable hope, beyond all reason, hoping, desiring, craving, longing and needing, and never not wanting, never not needing, sometimes not hoping, often not hoping, often despairing,
too often despairing.
And wanting and wanting and hoping and wanting and longing and never quite getting there, and hoping and wanting and never quite, and hoping and wanting and never ever quite, and wanting, never ever quite, and wanting and hoping so much, but never quite, and wanting and craving and needing and desperately hoping, so desperately hoping.
So desperately hoping and never ever and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately wanting and desperately.
If
only it were possible.
Only it doesn't seem to be.
Not
ever.
and
And
never
never
ever
quite.
quite.
And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping. Beyond hope. Beyond all reasonable hope. Beyond all sanity. Hoping, desiring, craving, needing, longing, wishing, and never not wanting. Never not needing. Sometimes
Yes,
not hoping.
sometimes not
Yes,
hoping.
sometimes not hoping. Too often not hoping. Yes, sometimes despairing. Too often despairing. And never ever getting there. No, never ever.
Not really there. Not where I want to be.
Not once.
And wanting and wanting and hoping and never quite. And hoping and wanting and never ever quite. And hoping and wanting and never ever quite. And wanting and wanting and longing and hoping so much and never quite. And wanting and craving and needing and desperately hoping and never ever ever. And wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately needing. If only one day, but never quite.
It must be possible.
Why not?
Why can't it be possible? Why can't it happen?
Why can't it be as I want it when I want it so much?
But never not once, never ever, not since I was born it doesn't seem, and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping beyond hope, beyond all reasonable hope, beyond all reason, still hoping, desiring and craving and needing and longing and never not wanting, never not needing, sometimes not hoping, often not hoping, and wanting and hoping and never quite, and hoping and wanting and never quite, and hoping and wanting and never ever quite, Wanting and wanting, never ever quite. And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping so much.
So desperately much, so painfully much, so cruelly much, so stupidly much, so insanely much, so endlessly much,
so tiresomely much,
so much more than I want, and never ever quite. I'm wanting and craving and longing and needing and desperately hoping and never ever ever getting there. I'm wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately wanting and desperately needing. If only and never quite. If only it must be possible. Only it isn't. It doesn't appear to be. It shouldn't be possible, only it isn't. It doesn't appear to be, never not once. I'm wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping beyond hope, beyond all reasonable hope, beyond all reason, still hoping, desiring, craving, longing and needing, never not wanting, never not needing, sometimes not hoping, too often not hoping,
and never ever getting there.
I'm
wanting and wanting and hoping and wanting and never quite. And hoping and wanting and never quite. And hoping and wanting and never ever quite. Wanting and wanting, never ever quite. And wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping so much.
And never quite getting what I want.
And wanting and craving and
needing and desperately hoping and never ever wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately wanting and desperately needing. If only.
And never quite.
If only it must be possible. Only it doesn't appear to be.
Never not once and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping beyond hope, beyond all reasonable hope, beyond all reason, still hoping, desiring and craving and needing and longing and never not wanting, never not needing, sometimes not hoping, too often not hoping. I keep on wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping and wanting and never quite, and hoping and wanting and wanting and never quite, hoping and hoping and wanting and never ever quite,
and wanting and wanting and never ever quite. Wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping so much, so desperately much, so horribly much, so painfully much, so stupidly much,
so insanely much, and never quite. And wanting and craving and needing and desperately hoping and never ever getting what I want. Always something else, something I don't want, not really what I want.
Only second best.
If that, I'm wanting and needing and wanting and needing and wanting and needing and desperately wanting, desperately needing. If only and never quite. If only it must be possible. Please make it possible, please. Please
make it, please.
But never not once. And wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting and hoping beyond hope,
beyond all reasonable hope, beyond all reason, still hoping, desiring and craving and longing and needing and never not wanting,
never not needing,
sometimes not hoping, often not hoping, too often despairing, and never ever getting there, never ever getting where I want.
Say to ourselves.
When we talk to ourselves.
Argue with ourselves.
Fight with ourselves.
Wrestle with ourselves.
Blame ourselves.
Console ourselves.
Reason with ourselves.
Hate ourselves. Love ourselves.
Not often love. Despise ourselves. Reject ourselves.
Accept ourselves. Not often.
Not often accept.
Listening to ourselves, talking to ourselves.
Alone.
A solitary voice talking to itself in the middle of the silence.
A conversation that never seems to end.
Never seems to end.
The voices that are with us in our aloneness.
Our constant companions in the dark, in the middle of the silence, nagging.
Berating us.
Comforting us.
Sometimes you were right.
They were wrong. They didn't understand.
The truth is with you. You were right all along.
They were wrong. They're to blame, not you.
We say this sometimes. Sometimes the voice in the dark consoles us.
Consoles us.
Acts as our friend.
Often not.
Often it scolds us. You fool! How could you act like that?
Haven't I told you often enough?
Why can't you learn? Utter contempt.
For you, for me.
Utter contempt.
For you, for me.
And well deserved.
Fool who keeps on making the same mistake.
Who's trapped in a pattern and can't learn.
And never will it see.
However often you're told.
And haven't I told you often enough?
fool who can't learn.
These are the things we say to ourselves.
Say to ourselves.
When we talk to ourselves.
Argue with ourselves.
Fight with ourselves, wrestle with ourselves,
Blame ourselves.
console ourselves,
Hate ourselves.
love ourselves.
Not
Not
often.
often.
Not often
Not often
love. Listening to ourselves, talking to ourselves alone.
A solitary voice talking to itself in the middle of the silence, a conversation that never seems to end.
Never seems to end.
The voices that are with us in our aloneness.
Our constant companions in the dark.
Nagging. Berating us.
Comforting us. Sometimes
You were right.
They were wrong. They didn't understand.
You were right all along.
The
The
truth
truth
is
is with
with
you.
you.
They're to blame. They're wrong, not you.
We say this sometimes. Sometimes the voice in the dark consoles us.
Consoles us.
Acts as our friend.
Often not.
Often it scolds us.
You fool!
How could you act like that?
Haven't I told you often enough?
utter contempt.
For you.
For me.
Utter contempt. For you.
For me.
And well deserved.
Fool who keeps on making the same mistakes.
Who's trapped in a pattern and seems never to learn.
And never will it seems, however often you're told.
And haven't
I told you often enough.
Fool who can't learn.
If you're going to do something, do it right, do it right, do it right. If you're going to do something, do it right, do it right, do it right. If you're going to do something, do it right. If you're going to do something, do it right, do it right, do it right, do it right, do it right. If you're going to do something, do it right. If you're going to do something, do it right. 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 Do it right.
Make a
Do
car.
it right. Do
When
it
life
right.
gives you lemons.
Do it right.
Make a car.
Do it right.
When
Do
life
it
gives
right.
you lemons.
Do it right.
When life gives
Do
you
it right.
lemons.
Do
When
it
life
right.
gives you
Do
lemons.
it right.
Make a
Do
car.
it right. Do it
Make
right.
a car.
Do it right.
Make a
Do
car.
it right.
When life
Do it
gives
right.
you lemons.
Do it right.
Make a car.
Do it right.
Make a
Do
car.
it right.
Make
Do
a
it
car.
right. Do it
Make a
right.
car.
Do it right.
Make a car.
Do it right.
Make a car.
Do it right.
Make a car.
Do it right.
Make a
Life
car.
Do it right.
isn't about
Make a
Do it right.
anticipating storms.
Make
Do
a
it right.
car.
Life
Do it right.
isn't about
Do it right.
anticipating storms.
Do it right.
It's about
Make a
learning
car.
to dance in
Make
the
Do it
rain.
right.
Make
Do
a
it
car.
right.
Life isn't
Do
about
it right.
anticipating
Do it
storms.
right. Do it right.
Life isn't
Do it
about
right.
anticipating
Do it right.
storms. It's about
Do it
learning
right.
to dance
Do
in
it
the
right.
rain.
Make
Do
a
it
car.
right.
Dance in the rain.
Do it right.
Dance
Do
in
it
the
right.
rain.
Do it
Dance
right.
in the rain.
Do it right.
Dance in
Do
the
it
rain.
right.
Make
Do
a
it
car.
right.
To dance
Do it
in
right.
the rain.
These are the things we say to make us happy.
To make us strong.
They make
make
us
us
happy.
They make us strong.
They make us happy.
They make us feel good.
They
They
make
make us
us
strong. They make us feel good. They calm us down.
They lift us up.
They comfort us. They help us go on.
They are strong words. They make us feel good.
Make us feel good.
Make us feel good.
Make us feel strong.
These are the good words we say to ourselves again and again.
To help us.
And make us strong and wise.
This is the power of words and,
And
the thoughts to make us strong and
happy.
We say these words and we feel strong. This is the power of words.
And the good things we say to give us belief and make us feel good.
If you're going to do something, do it right.
Yeah! When life gives you lemons, make a car.
Beep, beep.
Life isn't about anticipating storms. It's about learning to dance in the rain.
Yes.
These are the things we say to make us happy.
To make us strong.
They make us happy.
They make us strong.
They make us feel good.
They make us
They
strong.
make us feel good.
They calm us down.
They make us brave.
They lift us up. They comfort us.
They help us go on.
These are the strong words.
They make us feel good.
Make us feel good.
Make us feel good.
They make us feel strong. These are the good words we say to ourselves.
Again and again.
To help us.
To make us strong and wise. This is the power of words and thoughts.
To make us strong and happy.
We say these words.
And feel strong.
This is the power of words.
These are the things we say
To give us belief and to make us feel good.
The thing to do is always be positive.
Always be positive.
Always be positive.
Always be positive.
And not think about bad things.
Bad things are bad to think about.
Bad things are depressing. Bad things bring us down.
The thing to do is, Always be positive.
Always think about good things.
Think about happy things.
Think about positive things.
Always think about joyful things and don't think about bad things.
Always think about positive things.
Where possible.
Think about love and joy
And creativity.
And positivity.
and acts of kindness
And generosity.
And presents.
And parties.
and holidays
And flowers. And
And-
sunshine.
and not think about bad things.
Where possible.
Bad things are all around.
The world is full of bad things.
Like murder.
And torture.
And rape.
And famine and greed.
And many, many acts of cruelty.
There are so many bad things in the world, but it's better not to think about them too much.
Where possible.
Sometimes you have to think about them.
About murder and torture and rape and famine and greed.
And many, many acts of cruelty.
You can't not think about them because they're there.
You can't pretend they don't exist.
But it's better to always try and be positive.
Where possible.
And not obsess about bad things.
Not to let them weigh you down, not to get too angry
Or to depress.
or too sad.
Always try and be positive.
Where possible.
Always try and be hopeful.
Always look for good things. Keep coming back to the good things.
Like love and joy and creativity and positivity and acts of kindness.
And generosities and presents and parties.
And holidays and flowers and sunshine.
These are all good things and are good to think about and are good for your soul and good for your spirit and good for your health as well.
It's unhealthy to obsess about bad things like murder and torture and rape and famine and greed and many, many acts of cruelty.
Horrible as they are.
Hideous as they are.
Hateful as they are.
It isn't good to think about them too much. Unhealthily much.
Especially when you can't help, which is often the case.
It's bad for you.
The thing to do is always be positive.
Always be positive.
Always be positive.
Always
Always
be positive.
And not think about bad things.
Bad things are bad to think about.
Bad things are depressing.
Bad things bring us down.
The thing to do is always be positive. Always think about good things. Think about happy things.
Think about positive things. Always think about joyful things and not think about bad things.
Always think about positive things.
Where possible.
Think about love and joy and creativity and positivity and acts of kindness and generosity.
And presents and parties and holidays.
And flowers and sunshine.
And not think about bad things.
Where possible.
Bad things are all around.
The world is full of bad things.
Like murder and torture and rape and famine and greed.
And many, many acts of cruelty.
There are so many bad things in the world.
But it's better not to think about them too much.
Where possible.
But sometimes it isn't possible.
Sometimes you have to think about them.
About murder and torture and rape and famine and greed.
And many, many acts of cruelty.
You can't not think about them because they're there. You can't pretend they don't exist.
But it's always better to always try and be positive.
Where possible.
And not obsess about bad things.
Not to let them weigh you down, not to get too angry.
Or too depressed.
Or too sad.
Always try and be positive.
Always try and be hopeful.
Always look for good things.
Keep coming back to good things like love
And joy.
And creativity.
and positivity
and acts of kindness.
And generosity.
and presents
And parties.
And holidays.
and flowers.
And sunshine.
These are all good things.
things.
And they are good to think about.
And good for your soul and your spirit. And good for your health as well.
It's unhealthy to obsess about things like murder and torture and rape and famine and greed.
And many, many acts of cruelty.
Horrible as they are.
Hideous as they are.
Hateful as they are.
It isn't good to think about them too much.
Unhealthily much.
Especially when you can't help, which is often the
It's
case.
bad for you.
The thing to do is always be positive.
Always be positive. Always be positive. Always be positive. Always be positive. Always be positive.
Where possible.